Welcome, dear friends, to the second episode of Ally Techies. This is a segment where we discuss the latest updates about inclusive innovation for blind and partially sighted people across Europe and the world. Today is a very special episode. You know that 15th September is the International Day of Democracy. As of today, blind and partially sighted people across Europe still face barriers when it comes to enjoying their political rights and trying to join political and public life. Today, I'm joined by a special guest, Jukka-Pekka Piimies. Hello, Jukka. How are you doing?
Hello, I'm fine. How are you, Nacho?
I'm doing fine. Jukka-Pekka is a digital accessibility officer at the European Parliament. Jukka, first question. Participating in political and public life is possible for people with disabilities under condition that our communities are given the essential tools to enjoy this right on an equal basis with others. Tell us a bit more about your background. Were you involved at the political level in your country before? How did you become a digital accessibility expert for the European Parliament? And what kind of technological support were you provided with to do your job?
Thank you, Nacho. I didn't participate in traditional politics in my youth. At the same time, disability activism and the fight for equal human rights started in Finland too. That's in the 70s, but I was not involved in that struggle then. I turned into a disability and accessibility advocate in the mid-2000s. My colleagues at work created a peer support group for staff with disabilities or with family members with disabilities. And that's how I got involved with making policy proposals on digital accessibility. Following that, I also started to get official tasks that related to accessibility from the directorate where I was working. I was working as a Finnish simultaneous interpreter. All the while, as I was doing this, I was learning from the lived experience and the IT expertise of great colleagues at work. And also, of course, from the global accessibility community. If we fast forward about 20 years, I was appointed a digital accessibility officer in my directorate, which is in charge of interpretation and conference logistics. Now, digital accessibility and physical accessibility are a full-time job for me. And we're a team of 3 people promoting digital accessibility, or DA in short, as I will be using in this interview in my directorate. And I do get support. Staff have a right to adjustments at work, and I've requested, among other things, a computer screen that fits my need.
In a world where digitalization is increasingly present in our daily lives, the political world is also going through changes in aspects such as voting procedures, meetings, or access to information about candidates and political parties. Are there any initiatives within the European Parliament that are tackling obstacles faced by people with disabilities? If so, what are the technological aspects that the European Parliament is focusing on?
The initiative I work with and that I'd like to talk about today is the Digital Accessibility Officers Network, or the DAO network as we call it in the European Parliament. The network has a digital accessibility officer in all big units that we call directorates. And political groups can and do nominate representatives in the network as well. And the employee group that I mentioned of staff concerned with disability is an observer too. And in this way, the network unites all parts of the EP administration. We work on digital accessibility as a mandatory aspect of digital products and services, also in procurement, and on tackling barriers to accessibility. We have a roadmap that sets priorities and defines actions, and it's updated over time. We also share best practices between us. One of the things that our team, and other teams too, have been interested in is how to target DA training so that people have a chance to learn exactly what they need in their job. There's a lot of training in the world, and you don't want to get training that you don't need, and you don't want to get training that helps you. The role of our DA team in my directorate is on those lines. Identifying barriers and solutions, giving advice, promoting DA training, and advocating DA. Our team has a member who's a screen reader user, and they give demonstrations and hands-on feedback on documents, templates, and apps that our staff in our directorate are using. As to priorities, document accessibility is a priority right now, for example. So any technology that's used to produce documents or document templates falls under that priority. We focus on common tasks like creating accessible Word templates and forms. There's training for document accessibility offered to staff. There's also training for complicated tasks, such as graphical design, or demanding tasks like advanced PDF accessibility. On the whole, DA for us covers documents, apps, mobile apps, and also equipment with digital components, which are on the increase all the time. So change takes time, but we are embracing change, and we are ambitious, and we want to set a good example.
As a digital accessibility expert, you must be aware of the different technological innovations that are being designed to help blind and partially sighted people overcome their obstacles when it comes to enjoying their political rights. Could you please give us an overview of what are the main innovative solutions that are currently being developed and in which aspects of political participation by visually impaired people?
Thank you, Nacho. I will, to the best of my abilities, which are not great in all aspects here, but I'll focus on what I'm working on. So here I would be very interested in reading the comments section. What innovations do you use for political or public participation? What would you need now? On the whole, I think many of the barriers to political participation are well known to the community of visually impaired people, to blind and partially sighted people, but less so for people outside the community. In the case of elections, for example, there are issues like inaccessible information across the board and inaccessible polling stations. The eventual need to use an assistant who gets to know who you vote, although your vote is meant to be a secret. But a secret revealed is no longer a secret, is it? As a political body, the European Parliament has asked for a long time now for European elections to be made accessible by law. Digital accessibility could be a part of the solution, obviously. And electronic voting is certainly an area where innovation is helpful to make voting secret, accessible, and efficient. In cases like this, one would expect innovation to follow legislation or regulation because necessity is the mother of invention. But the barriers that we know from elections tend to make participation in political activities and decision-making more difficult, more costly, and time-consuming as well. Now, there are, for example, digital government policies in many countries to increase the use of IT in the public sector. And when these policies are designed to take all citizens into account, including blind and partially sighted citizens, would expect more accessible innovations, but also more innovations in accessibility. And that should create more equal chances for participation in public affairs. More broadly, all digital innovations that make mobility or wayfinding easier are also good for participation. So, good wayfinding solutions within buildings would be something I'd really love to hear about. In my experience, this is a hard nut to crack, also technologically. That said, money, resources, and negative attitudes towards visually impaired people are also an issue for participation, according to research. Of course, these obstacles should be tackled as such, but I do think that digital accessibility can lower some barriers there. Familiarity with people creates acceptance. The more accessible you make politics, the more contacts you create, and the more chances there are for people with visual impairments, for blind people, partially sighted people to be accepted for what they really are.
Finally, raising awareness plays a huge role indeed in improving blind and partially sighted people's participation in public life. Unfortunately, there aren't many blind or partially sighted politicians at both at the EU and member state level. As a person working at the EP, European Parliament, what are your priorities when it comes to improving technology to help them promote their political rights? Is there any advice you could give to a visually impaired person wishing to pursue a political career? How would having more visually impaired politicians help with underlining these barriers and nuancing the solutions aimed at bringing those down?
Thank you, Nacho. That's a vital question. These are issues that are very important to solve, indeed. With us, it's the representatives of members of parliament who lay down the rules for the internal running of the parliament. And that happens in a body called the Bureau of the European Parliament, which is chaired by the President of the European Parliament. The Bureau has given a mandate for digital accessibility. And as a result of this political priority, the whole DA network is there to put into practice and promote digital accessibility. Now, I've been around for 30 years in the House, and I know that there have been visually impaired MEPs who I've met as well. And we also have blind and partially sighted colleagues. And one of our priorities is to make the user perspective and the user experience to count and to be built into whatever we do. That is, of course, a perspective that many colleagues share. And we have several digital accessibility experts who are blind or partially sighted or visually impaired. And naturally, we have others who are not. I think I really hope to see advice from people in the comments, because political environments differ and people have different ambitions and goals. Basically, I would just say, go for it. Everyone goes into politics to pursue their own goals or shared goals and to have a say on many things. Ensuring accessibility, including digital accessibility, can well be one of the reasons why you go into politics. And if you have ambitions to bring down barriers, then you already know of many barriers. And you know that politics is a way of tackling them and that politics makes a difference. If your focus is more on other political goals and digital accessibility is just a necessity, then you could ask, is someone in charge of digital accessibility in the party or movement that you want to work with? Is there a program for equal chances of representation? Is there something you can make use of already? Contacting your national organizations that fight for better accessibility can also help. Most people following this series have already done that, I'm sure, but perhaps not everyone. To sum up, I'd just say that democracy happens only when everyone's well represented. And that's why participation of blind and partially sighted people in politics is so important.
Thank you very much, Jukka-Pekka, for sharing your experience and very valuable insights on this occasion, on the occasion of the International Day of Democracy. So thank you very much, Jukka-Pekka, Digital Accessibility Officer at the European Parliament. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
It's been a pleasure talking to you, Nacho.
And also, it's a pleasure to talk to you, our audience, again in this second episode of Ally Techies, the segment where we discuss the insights of inclusive innovation.